Hi there and welcome to another episode of Behind the Business with myself, Steve Swift, and my good friend, John Child. John, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, Steve. Yeah, how are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. It's been a bit of a crazy week, as they always are, but a fun one, plenty of activity and plenty of success stories that I could share, but that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is obviously a follow-on from part one that we did last week, which was about create successful strategies, and how you go about building a marketing plan, sales plan, thinking about what to do and how you're going to do it. And then when you get distracted with the bells and whistles and all that other information that's not good quality and it's not good content that works for your business, and how you can set yourself some milestones to keep you on track. Now, this episode is definitely in the realms of what John's expertise covers. So I'm going to hand over to John, let him go through this, and whenever there's aspects that I think I can add a little bit more value and actionable content, I'll jump in. But other than that, John, do you want to take the reins on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you now, it's going to be quite a proactive session. There's going to be a lot to it. So once we've got through it, when you're doing your homework, you're going to need to revisit bits and pieces of this podcast this week. As Steve said, this is a follow-on from the previous session where we talked about setting goals for your business and the importance of that and setting focus. So if you've done your homework from the last session, which I hope you have, you should have a usable goal. If you haven't, you need to go back, rewatch the last session and do that work. So today's session is all about taking that goal and making it breaking it down so that you've got a usable pathway to get to that goal. And so that along the way, when you realize that maybe something unexpected has come along or you've dropped off the path, you can readjust. Because it's like that old adage, Steve, of if you are at point A and point B is 3 miles away and you take 2 steps forward and then you accidentally go slightly off the path, by the time you get 3 miles down the road, you are way off the path.
Exactly. And it's all about, what do you keep to stay on track, isn't it, John? And what to do so you can handle things when milestones, which I know you're going to cover in this episode, are not achieved, when you planned it to be reached and how to overcome that. So I'm really excited about today's episode, John.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully people get a fair bit out of it. If anybody out there is listening to this who's done project management before, basically what we're talking about in technical terms is a critical path. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to be talking about. And a critical path is a fancy name for key tasks and milestones. Okay, so a goal, which is a huge goal, which hopefully you've got in front of you, can be a little bit daunting, and you might not know how to start. Every journey starts with a single step, and this is about finding out what the single steps are. So with that in mind, we've got an exercise, and it's a 3-part exercise. Part 1 being fairly simple and hopefully quite fun, because I believe that coaching and self-improvement should be hard work, but also a lot of fun, because life should be fun. If it's not, and you're not enjoying it, go do something else.
Absolutely, yeah.
So part 1 of the exercise, get yourself a piece of paper, A4, A3, whatever, and you're just going to brainstorm everything. You're going to put your goal in the middle, and you're going to make a list of everything that you need to have or everything that you need to learn in order to achieve that goal. Okay, now we've talked in the past about sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but at this point, everything you know that you need to know, or everything you know that you need to have in place, so that could be time, it could be technical equipment, it could be a certain type of knowledge, whatever, goes on that piece of paper, everything at all. Once you've got that, and I urge you not to rush through that part of the exercise, spend a good hour on that. Now, it seems like quite a long time, but it will be worth it in the end. And if you get sort of mind blown in the middle of it, go and have a quick break and then come back to it and do it, carry on. Once you've got your sort of page full of random things and random points, just mark down on there anything, get a highlighter pen or a pen and put an asterisk next to anything that you don't actually have at the moment. So any knowledge that you will need that you don't have, any resources that you might need that you don't have, just mark those down on the piece of paper because you're going to need to know that later. Okay. And that is part one of the exercise. So really simple, really fun. It should be quite enjoyable because this is you saying, this is what I want to achieve in the next 12 months, 24 months, whatever. This is everything that I'm going to do in order to do that. This is everything I'm going to need to know, everything I'm going to need to learn. Okay. So from that, you're going to learn a lot of information from that part of the exercise straight away. You're going to learn that probably you know an awful lot more about what you want to do than you thought, but you're also going to highlight those areas where actually I've got a weakness here. I need to plug that gap. And obviously there's different ways you can do that. That's not what today's about. Once you've got that down on your piece of paper, part two of the exercise, get another piece of paper. And it's another brainstorming session, but this is going to be everything that you're going to need to achieve or complete on the way to your goal. Okay, so forget the resources, forget the first part for now. This is everything you're going to need to achieve or complete on the way to your goal. So we talked about these kind of things in the past. Turnover projections, what kind of sales contribution per product. Now this, if you remember part one, we talked about you need to have a clear idea of what your sales projection or your contribution projection, that's your profit contribution for each product is going to be. Because if you remember, we used the example, Steve, of if you've got a goal of say £750,000 across 3-4 years, and you've got your first product and your forecast 50 grand for your first year, well, you've got some decisions to make. You might need some more products, you might need a different product. So you need to you need to know, in order to reach whatever goal you set for yourself, along the way, what will your sales contribution targets be? Might be by product, might be by product by year, whatever. Have those targets in place. And if you remember, we also talked about getting a spreadsheet and building that when you were putting your goal together. So it sounds like a big task, but if you did your homework from the last session, most of that's already in place. Now, what we're talking about here, these are your milestones to your success. They're the things they're the big rocks that you have to achieve en route to your next bit. So it could be, and I'll give you an example that's not from the business world, but if you were a student, for example, you wanted to become an engineer, your goal might be, I want to be an engineer. Well, your big rocks will be, your first one will be, well, I might need a certain type of degree to do that. Okay, well, what do I need in order to get that degree? Well, I need certain A levels to get accepted onto that degree course that I need for that particular job. So there you've got two big rocks. Apply for and achieve these A levels, and apply for and achieve this degree. They are milestones on your way. In other words, if you don't achieve those particular tasks, you will not achieve your goal, point blank. Okay, does that make sense, Steve?
Perfect. Yeah, keep going, John. This is really good stuff.
Brilliant. So that is basically think of it as the road that you're going to travel down in order to get to your destination. It's kind of like a GPS, but you're programming it in. You're programming your route in. Now, when you're putting this part of the exercise together, you need to remember to include anything from part one that you don't already have. So anything that you need to attain, so anything you need to go out and buy or have in place, technology. So if one of the things in part one was, I need a specialist kind of knowledge, and you don't have it, here is where you need to say, right, do I have the resources to purchase that knowledge, or do I have to learn it? And if you decide to learn it, then one of your big rocks becomes learn that skill. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to do the next bit. Okay, you have to have that in place. Once you've got everything down, and again, don't skimp on this exercise, really, really important. You can add to it later if you've missed something out, but spend at least an hour on it, go away, have a break, come back, check it again, make sure you've got everything in place. We're not talking about what order it's in or anything like that, just the tasks that you think you're going to need to do in order to achieve your aim. So, for example, if you wanted to write a book or a novel, there are certain tasks associated with that. You're going to have a plot line, or chapter summaries, or whatever. Or it might be, if you want to decide whether you're going to self-publish or get a publisher. Well, okay, you need to research those things, and then you've potentially got other milestones that break off. But what we're talking about at the moment is just get everything down on paper. Once you've got everything down on paper, you need to put them into some sort of chronological order. So you'll need a second piece of paper, and all you're doing, you're just going through and just mark next to each task. Well, that's task number 1. That's the first thing I need to do. Task number 2, that's the second thing I need to do. So if you've got, for example, 2 or 3 different products that you've identified that you want to launch, I'm going to launch the first one first, and it's going to hit that level of sales. Or thinking back to the episode we did on the sales cycle, well, once it's hit peak, I'm going to launch the second product. So that's going to come along later in the path, later on the journey. Okay, so you want to put numbers next to each one of them. This is the first thing I want to do. This is the second. This is the third. Well, actually, tasks 2 and 3 can be done concurrently, but we'll come to that later. But so you end up with a numbered list. So your milestones are numbered in order that you're going to do them. This is important because the next stage is get a separate piece of paper, write them down in order that you've put them in. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've now got a list, a numbered list. And taking your main goal and taking your list, you say, right, well, my main goal, I've got 24 months to achieve this. In order to do that and to achieve my goal by the date I've set for myself, I've got to get all these tasks done in that time. Set yourself deadlines for each task. How long is each task going to take you? Set yourself a deadline for each of those tasks. Write that deadline down on that piece of paper next to that task, so you know exactly when you want to achieve each of those milestones by. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. The first thing is it focuses your mind on, I have a task to do and I've got to get it done by this date. It also focuses your mind on, I'm not going to meet this target. What am I going to do? Because that's going to knock my ultimate goal timing out. So I've got to make that time up somewhere else. How am I going to do that? Can I do one of these tasks quicker, different alongside another task? Can I eliminate it altogether? Can I find a different way to do something? Really, really important, because basically what you're doing with this from a psychological point of view is, you're focusing the mind, but you're also teaching yourself to look for pitfalls in advance. What are the things that could trip this plan up? What am I going to do about them? Now, that's something that is going to make a big difference as you go through this process of going down that journey. But get your task list in order, set deadlines for the completion of each milestone. Then part 3, take the first milestone on that list, whatever that is, and repeat parts 1 and 2 of the exercise. So you've got your first milestone, which whatever that may be, get a piece of paper, write down, brainstorm on there everything you need to have and everything you need to learn or know in order to complete that first milestone. That becomes effectively a sub goal. Okay. And then repeat part 2, everything you need to achieve in order to achieve your first milestone. Exactly the same. Just go back and revisit how you did the first one. Do that for the first milestone. When you've got that, you'll end up with a deadlined task list for your first milestone. Then you take all the other pieces of paper and you file them away. And you take your first milestone task list and you get to work. And you complete the tasks on that list. Now, once you've done that, and I'm suggesting you do that as a task on its own and work through that first list on its own, because that will get you used to the process. It'll get you used to feeling what it's like to achieve those little stepping stones. Effectively, that's a list of stepping stones to achieve your first milestone. Achieving those stepping stones teaches you what it's like to achieve those stepping stones. And then you'll take each one off as you do them. And at the end of it, you should have a completed first milestone. And you can tick that off and go and celebrate and do whatever it is you promise yourself as a reward to celebrate, which again, very important part of the process. And then you pull out your lists and you take the second milestone. And if you're feeling confident, you take the second milestone, the third milestone, the fourth milestone, however many you can cope with at that one time. And you repeat the process for each of those milestones. So you end up for each of those milestones, 2, 3, and 4, with a list of stepping stones with dates for achievement beside each one. Then you get your diary out and you write the task into your day planner for those dates, or so that you complete the task by those deadline dates. And you'll find that when you're doing that, some tasks you can double up on your day. Some tasks you might think, actually looking at the time I've got in my diary, that deadline is set for myself, not quite as realistic as I thought it was going to be, because I've got to go and do a conference, or I'm away for 3 days, or whatever. But that's the flexibility of the plan. As long as you know that that's the case, you can look at your list and say, right, well, how is this going to affect the next stage of the plan? What's the knock-on effect for the goal overall? The advantage of that is, if you're on your first milestone and you overrun by a month, you can look at that and say, how's that going to affect me in 2 years' time with achieving my goal? Do I need to make that month back up somewhere else? Can I pay somebody else to do a task and make some of that time back? Do I need to look at another way of doing things? Is the thing that held me up on that first task a recurring problem? Have I completely underestimated the way that I need to work in order to meet this target? And whatever you decide on that, you either carry on down the same path or you make an adjustment. But the point is that working this way, it gives you the milestones to achieve the goal, and it's measurable. You can see straight away, I've done what I needed to do this month, and I know that that's given me a great foundation for the next stage of the plan. Or you might have put as one of your milestones, I'm launching a product. It has to make X amount of pounds profit, not turnover, as we discussed in the previous session. Turnover is great, but profit is what pays your bills. So what happens if you don't get the level of sales you thought? What happens if that marketing plan you put in place for that month, what happens if it meets a deathly silence? What happens there? What happens if it goes completely the opposite, goes completely gangbusters, you triple what you wanted to do, but that's also tripled your workload on that task, which means you've completely blown your financial target out of the water for where you want it to be right now, but it's got a knock-on effect if it's cost you 5 months down the line. These are things that you wouldn't even necessarily consider if you don't have this in place. So that's really it for me for this session. There's an awful lot of work. It's a simple process, but it's not easy. And it's not one to skimp on. You have to get this right, because what we're trying to avoid is we're trying to avoid you sitting in front of your computer while you're in that early stage and going, I'm going to do loads of work today. And you do loads of work and you get to the end of the day and go, oh, I've done tons. And well, okay. How has that progressed your business? Well, I've done tons. But how has it progressed your business? Well, you're not listening. I've done tons. But how has it progressed your business? You always need to be focused on what is moving you forward, because, well, like with Alice in Wonderland, if you're not moving forward, you're not moving. You're moving backwards. It's the Red Queen, and that is so important, because it's particularly in the early stages of business, as I'm sure Steve will attest. It's so easy to get caught up on the busy work, and not on the work that matters. And what matters is, the bottom line is, we can talk till we're blue in the face about everything else, but as we said before, if it's not bringing money in, if it's not measurably increasing your profit and your turnover, but particularly your profit, why are you doing it? Life's too short, and running your own company is more work than you will be expecting. And why would you? It's certainly more work than working for somebody else in those early setup stages, because the amount of pressure that is piling down on you to get it right and make it work, and that's just the pressure that's coming from yourself. If you've got responsibilities and you're moving forward with something, and those things matter. So you need to be not just doing the busy work, you need to be doing the right work. So I think the homework from me this week is to do that exercise. Is there anything that you think I missed out there, Steve, or that you want to add to that?
The points you've made, I mean, it's so important that people.
Oh, we've lost your sound, Steve.
Have you? Is my sound gone? Why has my sound gone? Has it come back yet?
Oh, hang on a second. We haven't lost your sound. I've lost my speaker. Try again. Oh. There we go.
There we are.
The wonders of live broadcast.
Yeah, I was just going to say again, I'll repeat it for John's benefit. His speaker's still working. John's hammered that home quite heavily there, and I completely concur with it. Don't skip the steps. Easy for me to say. Don't skip the steps mentioned.
Don't skip the steps.
Absolutely, yeah. For one main, well, a number of reasons, but one of them is it makes you accountable for the progress of your business. Yeah. I'm always talking to people about moving the needle. John said the same there at the end of obviously that exercise that he set you for your homework, which you really should do. And that is, don't waste your time doing things that's not going to make a positive movement of your business. I've spoken with people in the past where I've asked them when they've not had any online presence at all. I'm like, well, where's your website, or where's your LinkedIn profile, or Facebook? One thing for that's relevant. It's like, well, and all of them can be relevant, to be fair, but they've said, well, we're not quite happy with this color, and we're trying to tweak these images and one thing or another. I'm like, look, if you don't put something out there, you can't be found. Yeah. People can't see you. There can be no contact. You can't start making progress. And certainly, as we mentioned in the early episodes, if you go to a bank for money, them repayments start that month.
Yeah.
If you're hovering around about trying to make a website look the best, I'm going to tell you now, it won't. You will always be developing it. You will be enhancing it. You'll be polishing it all the time and making that a little bit better. You know, an exercise that I went through before in a previous episode was about the ideal client avatar. I know John and I had a conversation yesterday about something completely separate, but came up in that. And my ideal client avatar has evolved. It's changed from what the very first one was. But that's just natural progression with anything in business. And this exercise that John's gone through with you today with these 3 steps are important to follow them and put the time and effort in that's needed, because it's going to highlight what you need help with. It's going to highlight where your strengths are, though, and where you're going to go with your business with regards to revenue. And remember, milestones aren't goals. You know, they're very different things. And John's gone through that. And if you didn't pick up on that, listen back through to the exercise again so you understand what the exercise is and how to go through it. Because John did put quite a bit in there, you know, about setting future targets and over what time frames. And, you know, those are your milestones. You know, that's what he was saying to you. So you can get to that end result. Remember the example John gave about the student, you know, that can apply to anybody, whether it's student, whether it's business owner, whatever it might be. You can use this in any form of life to get a more positive outcome and to be able to reach that goal. And at the end of the day, I mean, it might seem like it's a lot of work. And John says it is a bit of a tough exercise, but it should be fun. Now, if you're not finding it fun or you're finding it a struggle, then remember the part 1 was find your strengths and find your weaknesses. Well, if you find this task is a weakness and you're struggling to stay focused, to go through it, to understand it, well, then guess what? You need John's help, because that's what he can help you with. And I'm not saying that to pitch or anything like that, but it's a fact. If you can't do something that's going to, if you could do it, take your business forward, but because you can't do it, it's stopping your business from progressing, then you need to reach out to someone like John, because he can help you. And yes, it's going to cost, but it's an investment in you, which invests in your business, which guess what, comes back 5, 10, 50 fold, whatever it might be. So it's an investment to progress, to get to the goal, which is a much higher value, and not just money, but obviously initially that is it, because money leads to being able to do things, have choices and progress. So sometimes you have to invest in order to get to the goal in a slightly quicker time frame, possibly with less headaches and scratching of your head and wondering how to do it, and you find it difficult to overcome these hurdles. That's what John and I do, and many other people that's in our kind of industries. That's what we do. We make money by solving people's problems, showing them how to get tasks done, showing them how to improve themselves, showing them how to improve the business so they can get what they dreamed of when they first went, I'm going to go into business for myself. Brilliant. How are you going to do it? Don't know. I'm just going to sell something, or, you know, I enjoy this, so I'm going to sell things like this, or I'm going to offer this service to do with that. But it's like, well, how do you go about making that happen? That's the passion, that's the dream, that's what you want. But how do you get there? And this is what all these episodes are about, is taking you on that journey. So John and I, yes, we're presenting ourselves as experts, because guess what? We've helped hundreds and thousands of people over the last probably combined of about 40 years worth of experience between us, you know, but certainly over the last 15, 20 years, where we've been individually working with business owners or in our own businesses to get these kind of outcomes and results. So we have got the knowledge and experience. That's why we are experts in what we do. That's why people employ us or people pay us, because they want to get that goal reached with as little pain and hassle as possible, so they can actually take themselves to that next level. And that's what John said in this exercise. You know, he's giving this information for you completely free of charge. It would be a crime if you did not use it, if you didn't put it to good use, because he said, you know, in a previous episode, he loves helping people. That is what he loves to do. I love business and growing businesses. So if he's gone to the time and trouble and effort of spending some of his time to share some of that knowledge at no cost whatsoever, what are you going to do? Are you going to go, yeah, that was entertaining, that took up part of my day and it was good fun to listen to? Or are you going to do the exercise? And if you struggle, are you then going to take a bit more action and reach out to John and say, look, I watched episode 12. of behind the business. I did enjoy it. I understood it, but I'm struggling. Could you help? Then just book a clarity call with John. It's free, no obligation, but it might just highlight it to overcome that hurdle. It could just be as simple as a clarity call with John. And then guess what? When you go through that and all of a sudden you find that easy and, oh, that's what it was. The light bulb moment happens and you're off and running. But what it's also going to do, when you get to that next point in your business, it's going to be, I'm needing some help with this. Who's the first person you're going to get in touch with? Because they've already helped you completely free of charge. It's going to be John. That's what these episodes are about. It's not about trying to pitch to anybody. It's not about trying to get people involved in our courses. It's about saying, look, we know what we're talking about, and that's why we're presenting these. Again, as I've said on other episodes, we don't plan these. I've got no notes to go from whatsoever. None. I've got the recap from last episode, so I know how we can tie this episode to last. That is it. And then I'll make some notes when John's talking. John will make some notes when I'm talking, so we can just reinforce and just recap what's gone on. And that's what I've just been doing for the past 5, 6, 7 minutes. That is it. We're trying to impress upon you to use what we're putting in these episodes into your life and into your business to have a better outcome and a more fruitful, business. So that is what these episodes are about. So I just wanted to push that point, home all the way and say, go through that task that John set for your homework, as we've done with other episodes, with other homeworks, because by now you should be having some fantastic changes happening in your personal life and in your business life. You should be finding that life is a happier place to be than maybe where you were before because of everything John shared with you so far. There's over 6 hours worth of video content here, and it's cost you nothing. It's completely free. The information and content I've shared with you, the tips, the suggestions, the ideas of what you need to look at in your business and what you need to be doing in order to take things further forward or fix things that are not right, I've given you completely free. And I've done it to say, look, this is to help you. If you want further help, fine, reach out. Let's have a clarity call. But there's no obligation, there's no pressure. We just want you to use what we are actually giving you. So again, I've pushed on that point I'm trying to make it clear really, because I know we get some people watching these, but not as many as what we'd maybe like and what we feel would benefit from it. But that's people's choice, and that's fine, And John and I have discussed what we're going to do about that, because I think you'd be right in saying this, John, that we do feel that this is really helpful stuff, and there's not as many people that we know that we come across that have seen it or maybe can use it.
I think that we've both sort of said, and as per usual, Steve, we're conscious of time, but we both sort of said, if only this was available when we were starting out, because the one thing that can help is learning from other people's experience and their successes, but also their failures and mistakes. And I can't speak for Steve, but over the year, I've run my own business for 2 or 3 times across decades in different industries. I've certainly been coaching for over 20 years. And if you can think of a mistake, I've made it, but I've also learned how not to make that mistake again. So you don't need to make those mistakes. If you follow this process that we're sort of revealing to you across the weeks, as it were, you'll avoid a lot of those mistakes. You'll make new ones, and if you do, contact us and tell us what they are, because we want to learn from you as well. That's the whole thing. If nobody knows everything, and the world is moving fast. The iPhone was created 10 years ago, less than that. Who would have thought you'd have had a computer and a Walkman in your pocket, and it's the same thing, and a camera, all in one place? That's a miracle. The world is changing so fast, but the things that, but from my perspective and what I do with people is, the world is moving fast, and people think they're moving as fast as the world, but you're not. So there's a whole new set of problems that people are going through with business, but in their own lives, based around the fact that we live in a society that we're not designed for. but we're not aware of that necessarily. So you can get these sort of internal blocks that stop you doing things and you don't even know they're there. Or if you can see they're there, but you don't understand why or how or what to get around. Or you can be doing something in your business, or there could be a key task that you need to do that you're not doing, and you don't understand why you're not doing it. And it could be something really simple, but because it's you, you're not going to see it in yourself.
And that is it, isn't it? So many people get that mind block, mental block, that hurdle, and they don't even know it's there. And they're scratching, they're going, why is my business not progressing forward?
Yeah.
And they don't realize it's either a personal hurdle that they're not recognizing because they can't identify it because they don't know it's there, or it's the business side of things. And that's where we both cover those aspects. And that's why we're doing these episodes, is to say, well, it could be this. You know, that's why I'm always saying, what are you doing in your business and what do you need to look at? I'm trying to get you to open your mind up to other things around you, out the box thinking almost, or identify things. And then when you identify it, you can put it right. Now, there could be things that you identify and you can't put them right because you don't know how to. Well, guess what? That's why I'm here. That's why John's here. But only when you are ready for it, or you feel you need that, rather than want it, but you need it, then reach out to us. And again, that's why we've put all this information for free. That's why we have the clarity calls for free. So hopefully you've got a lot of, content and that homework that John said, you go through that task, make sure you complete that, make sure you've completed all the other tasks. We'll be back with another episode very, very soon of Behind the Business. If you want to see all the others, go and check out behindthebusiness.uk website. We're obviously on YouTube, obviously. Click the little bell in the corner here if you are watching it on YouTube, because that'll notify you of the next video when it's uploaded that John will be doing. And also you can listen to us on your preferred podcast provider, because we're on iTunes and Apple Play or whatever it is, and all these different places. So there's plenty of places you can listen to us. And if you like seeing us faces as well, or understand any demonstration we're doing on screen, then do so.
Who wouldn't? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Who wouldn't? Yes. This is my best side.
Don't want to see the other.
I never turn any other way about this, John. So, right, okay. Thanks very much for your time, guys. Really appreciate you being with us, listening to us. Go and get your homework done. And if there's any questions you've got for us, reach out, give us a shout, and we'll help you out. Other than that, take care. Have a great week.